Very exciting fireside chat. Wonderful to have you with us. We're sitting here at the fireside chat place. Of course, I've got Brent over there. Well, I don't have him. You have him, or everyone has him. He's over there. There's a leopard calling there, and I've just heard a whole lot of guinea fowl alarm calling just behind us where I'm pointing now. Whatever leopard is that Brent has been following, I think is moving up, possibly up this road, and is now frightening the life out of the guinea fowl over there. So, Brent may or may not join us, depending on the recalcitrance of old Rusty. I think Rusty is probably going to be put to the torch fairly soon. We've got an exciting sort of half an hour plan for you. I think it's roughly half an hour. We're going to start off with my personal birthday present. Then we're going to move on to some interesting wild dog stuff. Now, if you want to talk to us, please remember you are welcome to talk to us via the tweet, and if you want to ask a question. Sorry, I'm being attacked by a piece of I think it's called Ericloa. I'm not really sure. I've ceased to be attacked by it now. Talk to us, ask us questions, wild dog based ideally, but if you want to ask us other things, that's fine. Not where I get my hair done, because obviously I do it myself. First of all, I'd just like to give a big shout out to Carol. Carol, we know that you have had some tremendous challenges of late with various medical things over the years, and you've been with us since 2013, and we think that you're about to get home after a very difficult time in hospital. So a quick shout out to you. We know you're a big fan of Quarantine and Kunyuma and their mother Karula, the Queen of Djuma, and a big shout out to you. We hope that you get better soon, and we hope that you will have no further challenges with your health, and that you will perhaps be able to come out here and rejuvenate your soul and your body and your mind, perhaps with a trip to the wilderness, and if not, the next best thing, keep watching Safari Live. It's lovely to have you on board with us, and please keep watching. Keep safe, keep strong. Okay, let's move on. We're going to move on to my favourite sighting. Well, my second favourite. It's a 50-50 call. Probably my almost favourite sighting of the week, a tiny little elephant. It happened on the morning of my birthday, my 23rd birthday. That's a foul and contemptible lie. But yes, it was on the morning of my birthday, a tiny newborn elephant. We're going to have a look at a clip, and I'll see you just afterwards. Take a look at this. What a treat this is. That is a tiny, tiny baby elephant. I don't think more than a few days old, if that. So sweet. Oh, look. How she doesn't stand on it, I just cannot understand. Oh, look, it's got a little step to go down. What a treat. You can actually see a little bit of the umbilical attachment there on the little baby as well. Okay, it's just in front of us. Still pink. Still pink. Okay, she seems quite relaxed, so I'm going to turn the engine off. Oh, look at the pink thing. Wasn't that just very spectacular indeed? A beautiful, tiny, baby little elephant on my birthday. Wonderful birthday present, and just to see, especially that one little bit there that you saw where he or she, I always see little things like that as she's, walking and kind of tripping over her own feet, and amazing how the rest of the herd never looks like they're going to stand on the little one. And I always think that it must be almost impossible for them not to. They can't look down and see what's going on around their feet, and yet they just move around in the most amazing fashion. So I think that was a wonderful, wonderful sighting. Certainly the youngest elephant I've ever seen, actually, and I've been out here for quite a while. So very special. The leopard's calling again. You won't pick it up, I'm afraid, but the leopard is calling in exactly the same place it has been calling. So Brent, I think, is going to stay out there. Well, he doesn't have a choice at the moment because the car won't start. But if Rusty does eventually start, I think he's going to stay out there and see if he can't find that leopard. It's calling almost exactly in the same place as I first heard it, which is around Gallagher Waterhole, somewhere around there. Anyway, we'll wish him the best of luck. So that was the elephants, the youngest one I've ever seen. Beautiful sighting and just amazing. A little while later, I think it was that same night actually, some of our viewers who watched the Arathusa Dam cam saw 6 hyenas trying to attack that little leopard. And it's not a leopard at all, it's an elephant. That little elephant. And the herd, as they always do with elephants, got all the way around the little one and protected it from 6 hyenas. Voracious predators are hyenas, they're not only scavengers. Lions, they would have done the same thing, obviously a bit more of a threat because they're much larger, but that herd, you've seen from the number of elephants out here, and we hardly ever see elephants killed by big predators here. Elephants are particularly adept at looking after their little ones. So that was the elephants. Now, let us move on to probably my favourite thing, definitely Brent Leo Smith's favourite thing, as I'm sure you've seen him chasing them on the hunt. Wild dogs, we've had a wonderful time of late with a few wild dogs, and when we had Hayden and Peter here a little while back, we had an incredible experience, or Hayden had an incredible experience. Wonderful for him to come out from London, where he lives in the hustle and bustle of Pimlico in central London, and wonderful for him to come out here, drive along the Bifflesford Hook Cut Line and see what we're about to show you now.
Folks, I don't know what to say. I just don't. Folks, I don't know what to say. I just don't know what to say. This place blows my mind. We just drove down this road, and Liam and I were just talking about the wild dogs that we saw down here about a year ago and how fantastic it was. And look at this. We found the pups. Oh my goodness, this is just sensational. The pups, oh my gosh. Now, I'm hoping that these are the adults belonging to this pack, or maybe they're not. Don't know if they've seen each other. Yes, they are. I think they're a little bit concerned. Here comes the pups. It's all about to happen now, guys. Listen to this.
You can hear, sorry, again, I'm going to get to that clip, wonderful sighting that Hayden had, but you can hear, they've just stopped now, the guinea fowl are going ballistic there, they're alarm calling, there's stuff going down there around where Brent and Rusty and the leopard are, probably none of them moving very far at the moment. So, an incredible sighting there of the pep rally, as it were, that's the rallying call that the pups and the adults make. Now that's the first time we've seen those pups. There were apparently 13 when they were born. The average, I did a bit of a wild dog research to refresh my mind today. The average size of a wild dog litter is between 12 and 21 pups. So 12 is not unusual. There were 13 in this one. 2 of them died. And this is the Investec pack. They've also lost an adult to a bite from a snake. Now Jeannie, on the back end of that clip, you want to know about when the pups leave the pack, and I was doing a little bit of research on this as well, because I initially thought for a while that it was after not much more than a year. It turns out that that is not the case, and it's quite variable as to when they do and don't leave the pack. So in a small pack like this, I think what you'll find is that the least dominant members may remain in the pack for life. Now what that does is, because they're not dominant, they will not breed with each other, and so there's no problem with inbreeding. But what you will find is that the more dominant ones that were potential alpha and beta dogs, I think, will disperse. The males go off on their own, females go off on their own, probably not before they have helped to raise next year's litter of pups. So not before sort of 2 years. They only start properly hunting after 12 months. So while they are moving with the pack now on the hunt, and we'll show you a little bit of that just now, while they are doing that, it's unlikely that they will move off before sort of 2 years. And then Donna in South Carolina, I think you've asked me a few questions that have stumped me over the last few months, and this one comes some way to doing that. You ask the very salient and clever question, why, when they are so vulnerable, do they make such a noise when they meet up? Surely it would attract other predators. I think there are two things, or a number of aspects to this question that we should address, and they're quite interesting. The first is that the pups, of course, are not. I don't think dogs are as vulnerable as we think they are. They're vulnerable to disease. They're vulnerable to anthropogenic effects. Fences they don't like. They get poisoned by farmers if they go out of the fences. They need enormous areas. So in the absence of man, they are still the third on the predator hierarchy, and sometimes a second. So we've got the lions at the top, then the hyenas, then the dogs. And the dogs and the hyenas can swap depending on the numbers in their packs and their clans. So they're not that vulnerable to other predators. Now, that being the case, I think you'll find that rallying call, which is often begging, so that twittering that you heard initially, and you may have seen, I saw in the clip, there's one adult that looks like it's trying to be sick, and they're trying to regurgitate. What that squeaking is a bit like if you can think of a bird chick calling in the nest, trying to get the adults to bite into there. What happens is that the pups beg, they squeal like that, and then the adults regurgitate. So it's not just a rallying cry. I think there's a lot of begging going on in there, but I think that there is a certain amount of social interaction, and that will involve noises, but they're not as vulnerable as we think they are. If they're in the pack like that together, lions are their only real danger in the wild, outside of any other kind of anthropogenic effect. So I think, Donna, I hope that answers your question. Because I am alone tonight, of course, you may see me start to stare blankly at the screen like that, and that means that I'm hearing the next question. Normally we would then hand over to one of us, so I'm now going to stare blankly while I listen to the next question. Now, obviously you know I've just received a question, that's why I was staring blankly at the sky. Ellen in Arkansas, a good one. Do the parents know that there is a clear leader emerging amongst the pups, and how do they deal with that, and do they kind of show favoritism? I don't think they know. I think that they probably figure it out pretty soon. Now, we were watching the pups yesterday for a while, and it certainly seemed to me that they're now, they're almost sort of 3 months old. It seemed to me that there was in that play behavior, it's exactly like, let's think of human beings in a play situation, even at nursery school or kindergarten school or into sort of lower primary school, which I guess is where those dogs are getting now. When you see little boys playing with each other, not so obvious with girls, but they're also doing it, little boys playing with each other, they play fighting and they're kind of boxing each other around, pushing each other over. There's a dominance display going on there. We're sorting out who's the strong ones, who's going to accept this, who's going to fight back, who's just going to cower in the corner, who's going to go off on his own, who's going to protect the little ones from the bullies. And I think exactly the same thing is going on with the wild dogs. So we watched them yesterday. One of them got up immediately when he saw a dove and he went off to see if he could catch it. The others ignored him completely. Maybe not a leader, but maybe an adventurous member of the pack. Then we saw them start to play, and we saw a few of them lying on the ground and being kind of dominated by the others. Then we saw others kind of sniffing on each other's genitals, and that's kind of a fairly submissive behavior. I think within the next month there'll be a fairly clear hierarchy amongst those pups. But remember, the adults are always going to dominate them unless the adults get very old. Now, very old, unfortunately, for a wild dog pack, any wild dog up here, 80% of the wild dogs in the Kruger National Park are less than 5 years old. That shows you how life is not easy for the wild dog around this area. I think before man it was probably a lot easier. Now, we have another clip of wild dogs to show you, and so rather than my staring blankly at the sky and the beautiful moon rising above us, what we'll do is go to that clip of the other wild dogs. I'll pick up a few questions, try desperately to remember them, and see you back here after the clip in see you just now.
Oh, here we go. Hello little guys. So I'm ecstatic. This is the first time I've seen these guys with the little ones. And it's amazing that they are completely free of a den already at this young age, and they travel with the pack. This is such fun!
Hello little pups, these are just the pups. And there's an adult. Oh look, they've chased an impala into the dam. Or Nyala. That's amazing. This is unbelievable. Look at this, everybody. You've got a great view of exactly what's going on. So the three adults, or two adults, are now streaming around. Now, what I predict is going to happen is that eventually that, what is it? Is it a Nyala?
Yeah.
Eventually that Nyala is going to become tired and will either drown. The hippo could attack it. I've seen that happen before. But I suspect, I'm afraid,
I'll let you know when I'm
the days of that Nyala are probably over.
Alright,
Little dogs. The little ones are just over here by. Hi guys. What a sighting that was, and I know my voice got a little high-pitched at stages. It was because I was genuinely astonished by that sighting, and even with Rusty's troubles we still managed to have an incredible sighting of those 11 dogs, that hapless Nyala, who I'm happy to say made it through the ordeal. You've waited out the dogs, and because it's warm, the water is probably sitting in around 25 degrees Celsius, pretty warm. The only danger in the water wasn't hypothermia, it was those hippos. And at one stage those hippos got pretty close, and then they backed off and left it alone. And eventually the dogs gave up. We turned the lights off, we don't shine the lights on dogs, and we were just listening, trying to see shadows and the odd sort of silhouette in the darkness, and we didn't see them, and then the dogs disappeared. Well, we think they disappeared. We turned the lights on, suddenly they weren't there. Turned the lights off, Nyala came out the bush and disappeared off into the night. So we like to think that Nyala had a happy ending. Now, a couple of questions here, which I'm going to do my level best to remember. Charlie, you want to know about wild dog diseases, or why they don't live for long, why they're so short-lived, why only for 5 years. And the main factor is disease. Canine distemper and rabies are major factors. Remember that the Kruger National Park here, and certainly, I mean, the only other area in southern Africa that they occur in great numbers is Hwange in Zimbabwe, big park there. All of these parks are surrounded by local people. Local people are very poor. There are no veterinary services in any of these areas, which means that their dogs carry diseases. They often are so desperate that they come into the reserves to hunt, what might be termed poaching, but in my opinion is just desperation hunting, certainly for the pot. And when that happens, wild dogs come into contact with domestic dogs, they pick up their diseases to which they have no natural resistance, and they fall prey to them. So that's one of the reasons. That's a major killer of wild dogs in Africa now. So as I say, in the absence of anthropogenic effects, wild dogs tend to be, I think probably would be a lot stronger than they are now. The second thing that takes them out are lions. Lions kill 80% apparently of pups that die in the Kruger National Park. Lions will kill that many. So a huge number do taken by lions. That's what I read. I'm not convinced that that is the case. I think they do get killed a lot by lions, but probably not quite as much as that. Then, an interesting one from Keith, and this is a bit of a bugbear, or has been amongst wild dog conservationists for many, many years. Wild dogs for many years were seen as terribly cruel, horrible killers, and because of that they were vilified, They were shot and they were poisoned and they were seen as vermin. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a wild dog kill. If you haven't, do yourself a favour. You'll find many on YouTube. They're very unshy about where they kill and how they do it. It looks gruesome. What they do is they'll get up to, say, an impala, those 3 adults there, they'll disembowel it very quickly. They grab it by the stomach, pull it, rip it open, the stomach contents comes out, the animal goes down, and they tear it to pieces. 9 dogs will eat 100 kilograms of meat in 15 minutes, so it's a huge amount of meat devoured very fast. Now, what you've heard, Keith, is that this is a very terrifying and horrible experience for the prey. No doubt, I've got no doubt that it's very unpleasant for the prey. I don't believe that they feel a thing. We know that when animals go into shock, they stop feeling. It happens so fast. From the time that that animal is caught by the dogs to the time that it's devoured, it's less than 10 minutes most of the time. From the time of them catching it to actually killing it is probably less than 30 seconds. In the case of very large prey, sometimes in East Africa they will take zebra and wildebeest sometimes. Here they don't tend to do that. They might take young kudu here. In fact, they do take kudu here. But even then, the death is within a minute. The animal is dead, and they're in such shock, I don't believe that they feel a pain. Andrew was just telling me the other day. Now, Andrew's one of the cameramen who's camping on Rusty with Brent tonight. Andrew was attacked by a chimpanzee a while back, and it did quite a lot of damage to his arm. And he said to me, we were talking about this exact subject, and he said he didn't feel a thing until afterwards. He didn't feel anything. He went into complete shock, didn't feel a thing, got away from what the chimpanzee was chasing him, and he didn't feel anything afterwards until the sort of rehabilitation took place. And I'm pretty sure it's exactly the same for an animal that's been killed by wild dogs. I don't believe it's the same for an animal being killed slowly, for example, by a cheetah that's got it around the throat, waiting for it to suffocate. I think that's probably a lot more painful, although I think there's a lot of shock involved, and especially I don't think it's the same for animals perhaps like buffalo, which are taking big buffalo bulls killed by prides of lions. It tends to take quite a long time, and I think it's probably a bit more painful. Certainly the death takes a lot longer. So Keith, in a roundabout, long-winded way, there's no need to worry that there's any kind of pain to the animal. Right, we have another question coming through. Oh, good grief. And totally off topic here, Yvonne, if you watch MasterChef South Africa, and you say that you've heard about pup, chakalaka, and braais. Now, for those of you who don't know, braai is the South African form of barbecue. It's exactly the same thing. It is the cooking of meat on an open fire or some coals. Chakalaka is a kind of chili, mango, different kinds of things. So it's like a kind of relish, a sweet relish of some kind. And then pup is a sort of African polenta, if you like. It's a maize meal porridge. And you want to know, do we eat this kind of stuff in camp? Sometimes we do, yes. Many people have come out here while I've been guiding and have said, listen, we'd like to taste some African cuisine. There's an elephant. He's breaking a tree. I'm sure it's that bull elephant. I think apparently your bull elephant is on Djuma waterhole. That's another elephant breaking something there. We should be okay here around the fire. If it does come closer and we run away into the darkness, you'll know why. So a lot of people have come out here and said, well, can we taste African cuisine? And the simple fact of the matter is that in this area, indigenous African cuisine is very few and far between, and that is not any aspersion on the local people here. It's a fact of life that the ingredients available for cooking out here are almost non-existent. There's nothing in the way of like a natural chili, natural salt or natural flavorant, so the food tends to be very bland, and most of the local people out here now use quite a lot of Indian influenced foods or Mexican influence. So they use a lot of chilies, North Africa obviously produced a huge amount of interesting cuisine, as did the Cape. When the Malays came over as slaves back in the 1600s and 1700s, they brought with them a lot of Malaysian cuisine, and that obviously added a lot of spice and flavour to South African food. But local cuisine here, pap, maize meal porridge, is an entirely tasteless affair unless it tastes like whatever you put on top of it. Otherwise it's like eating sort of thick white water. Chakalaka is a kind of stew, vegetable stew if you like, and that's what you put on the pap. So that's basically your answer, Yvonne. Now I'm going to play you a little song, and this song is not a South African song, but it was written in South Africa, and it was written in South Africa by, I think, one of the greatest American songwriters in history, and that is Paul Simon. And it was written by him about a chap called Joseph Shabalala. And Joseph Shabalala, who many of you might know, is the leader of the iconic and Grammy award-winning Ladysmith Black Mambazo. And they were put on the map by Paul Simon during his 1987 or 5 album called Graceland. And this song is called Under African Skies, and it's by Paul Simon from the album Graceland. Joseph's face was black as the night. The pale yellow moon shone in his eye. His path was marked by the stars of the southern hemisphere, and he walked the length of his days under African skies. Music was ringing round my nursery door. I said, take this child, Lord, from Tucson, Arizona. Give her the wings to fly through harmony, and she won't bother you no more. Joseph's face was black as the night, and the pale yellow moon shone in his eyes. His path was marked by the stars of the southern hemisphere, and he walked the length of his days under African skies. We'll see you tomorrow at 05:30. Well, with any luck. Rusty will be going. See you later. Stay safe, and thanks for watching.